How's it going, everybody? Welcome back. Episode 9, today's progress, yesterday's plan. And man, this has been a wild week on so many levels. And I'm just excited to be back, excited to be sticking to the plan, right? I just want to share that I'm wearing a really special shirt for me today. I'm wearing my TV Hosting Academy influencer shirt. I actually won this. If you heard episode, I think 2, you would have learned about the journey I'm on with this podcast specifically. And you would have found out that I entered a contest. I submitted some, let me backtrack a bit. I think I'm being a little vague. So on episode 2, I believe I explained it in depth that the reason I created this podcast was for personal accountability, a personal journey I'm on to work my way up into hosting, on-camera hosting. And this is kind of like a practice for me to address you, to address an audience, to continue my growth in speaking skills, right? So fast forward a little bit, I joined a small coaching group with Nicole Sellers. It's called the TV Hosting Academy. And in this community, there was a contest after we had an amazing workshop of learning how to present ourselves, right? How to prepare our materials, which includes a demo reel. It includes a resume, a professional hosting resume. So not your ordinary work experience resume, but specific to the work of hosting, and a website. And I created a landing page website for myself that includes my demo reel. It has my resume. It has a blog section that I could update with this journey. And I submitted that and it won. I won the contest. I was very happy for that. And this is the prize I won, an influencer shirt. So I'm happy to be wearing it. Shout out to Nicole Sellers. Thank you so much. Your encouragement and guidance has helped me moving forward in my content journey. I've been on it for such a long time, but it was that extra push that just got me on this path now of continuing to release content, sticking to what I'm saying I'm going to put out there. And encouragement is a big part. So I'm happy to wear this shirt. If any of you are on the same journey or looking to improve your on-camera hosting skills, TV Hosting Academy has a lot of different workshops that you can look up. You can get personal coaching from Nicole Sellers, and it's very helpful, to say the least. So I highly recommend it. And there was my plug for the show, and that's why I'm wearing this shirt. I messed up right there. In other news, some updates. This week has been very productive for me, and it's been kind of wild. I mean, I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to the news or, your Facebook feeds. I'm sure it's filled up with, Robinhood stories, GME, aka GameStop stories about the stock market and things like that. And man, it's crazy to say the least. I myself have started to dabble with Robinhood this past little 2 months now, and so I got in it in this time of hecticness. And there's a couple things about that. It's wild how, speaking about influencer and influencing, how a group of Reddit posters had such an impact on the market that what's going on now with the hedge funds and laws being called into question, the SEC. I mean, it's crazy, and it's amazing how technology and social media and the internet have put the power of influence in the hands of, I was going to say in the hands of many, but really in the hands of everyone, right? Like everyone has the same potential. I mean, I think everyone has the same potential to get out there, put content on, and some have more maybe different advantages once you get to certain levels of technology, I guess. But I think everyone's in the same level to enter this technology game, especially now that with this new norm that we're living in. I think many have been hesitant to adjust to the new normalities of today's day and age, and many have adapted to it. And I like to think that we're adapting, and we have to adapt to move forward. This brings up like EV vehicles, electric vehicles to mind, right? I've had several discussions, and there's the discussions of staying away from electric vehicles. Some people don't want to leave coal and lose jobs, and the batteries cause cancer, and there's all kinds of different arguments and things. But I'm like with the progressive mentality of like progress, moving forward. Like, we don't have to stay in the same place. We don't have to keep using old technologies. And that advancement's hard because laws are still old and haven't caught up to technology. Different generations are still around that are not going to accept new technology and don't want to go to new ways. Understandable. But like we're going to move into new technologies. We're going to move into the new norm. We're going to see new things happening, and unless you embrace it, you're just going to be fighting the whole time, I think. So, with that said, going back to electric vehicles, the reason I'm mentioning that, I'm part of a Facebook group here in Mexico. It's called like the Classic Cars, and there's all tons of these groups online. And somebody posted a meme or like a picture of a classic Mustang, and then they put a picture underneath it of an electric vehicle looking like a smart car, all small and weird looking, right? And they're like, oh, if you ask me, the past was better. I want to stay in the past. And man, that Mustang looks way more awesome than that electric vehicle for sure. But I commented on there, and it started like this big discussion because that mentality is going to get you stuck, and then you don't advance, and you're not going to have that past because it's never going to be there again. Like, it's never going to go back to it the way it was, and it shouldn't, because we should not go backwards. But my comment to that was, I'm trying to think back to what I actually said, and I said it in Spanish, so I want to translate it. It was something along the lines of, I don't know, I think it's something like, I'm looking forward to the future and embrace it like happily, and that doesn't mean they're going to take away your classic cars. Something along those lines. In fact, there's going to be more cars added to that list, right? Newer cars are becoming classics and things like that. But the kicker of the post was that I found a 65 or 67 Mustang. I forgot what model it was exactly, but my point was that it was an amazing electric vehicle conversion. So like I shared that in there, and it had like tons of horsepower, straight torque to the wheel because it's electric motor, straight to the drivetrain, I guess you could say. It was an awesome car, and I shared that. I'm like, look at your past and look at the future. You could have them both. And it started a really cool discussion. And I remember when this is going back a long time. I remember when I was working with a partner and good friend of ours, ours being my brother and I, we were working with our friend Chris on a video magazine called Import Lifestyle. And we were doing, this was right before YouTube came out, right? This was before blogs were like so easy to make, and before everybody was publicizing things. So we had just gone into DVDs because Import Lifestyle started with VHS, and we were doing DVDs of a video magazine of import cars, import shows, and going to drag races and going to car shows and making segments and producing these DVDs, volumes and stuff. And it was really fun. But that's interesting to look back and think of that because, man, we I started to make a blog, and it was before WordPress really was like kicked off. So I was trying to write HTML, and finally we got a blog up, and like we were getting traction, and then I was having trouble with it, and YouTube wasn't out yet. And then YouTube had just come out, and man, I feel like I somehow missed that advantage of being in it so early. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. But what I was going to go back to, tying it back to the EV, when we were producing that magazine, we were already speaking to different shops and producers of motors for electric vehicles. And no one was even talking about electric vehicles back then. There was no Tesla yet. There was no, people were doing vegetable oil diesel conversions on some cars, and we had it all lined up. Like, we found a producer. They had made a car. It was like a 6-second electric drag racing car that was like killing all these other cars. It's called Lightning, I think, White Lightning. And so we had them lined up of how to produce an electric motor. We were going to put it in a 240SX that I had at the time. And we were talking to the engineers. We were talking about battery options, because it was so new that that's what the issue was back then, was like having a battery that wasn't super heavy and that provided enough power and charge and things like that. And I don't know what happened. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know where we hit a hiccup and didn't move forward with it, but it's cool to think that we're already moving in that direction. And now, if you follow motorsports at all and you're familiar with like Formula Drift, they have some electric drift vehicles now. You have Formula E, which is, like the Formula One racing electric vehicle class. There's, big manufacturers, or like the big manufacturers are announcing full on lines of electric vehicles and move to the electric vehicle side. And I'm like thinking in my head, dude, that's where we need to head, and that's where we're going. And some people are still hesitant to that and scared of accepting that, instead of jumping on and running with it, because it's going to take off, like things are so new. These are the times to start implementing and innovating, and before it's too late, because it's going to take over. To my understanding, I think Biden, we'll see, has some plans that he's going to come out with to start implementing laws and having the country start making a shift to electric vehicles. And then people are like, no, but how are you going to charge them? And how are you going to get across? And no, and you're going to take away jobs. And man, why do we have to look at it so negatively? I think it's like a huge opportunity. Yeah, we'll lose a few cold jobs. We probably will adapt and then go find an EV job or an electric job, because a ton more jobs are going to be created. Just don't be scared to switch an industry. I think that's where people get held back a lot too. Like, don't be scared to switch in an industry that, it's like what's another good example there? Charging stations are going to come up. People are, they've created charging stations and docks for home docks, so you can charge your cars at home. There's still hybrids, a bunch of excellent hybrids that still will run on some fossil fuel. I don't know. I'm excited about that technology. I remember when the first hybrids started coming out, and when I would hear them drive by, it sounded like the future, Like, I remember one time I was on a shoot, and I saw a car. I don't remember what kind of car it was. I think it was one of the first like SUV hybrids. And I was shooting in one direction, and I remember that I looked and I saw the car, and it was going to make a left or a right-hand turn, so it was going to pass me behind my back. And I just kept shooting and aware of my surroundings, and I heard this like sound like in stereo from my right ear and then out the left, and it went away. And man, I still remember that day. I felt like it was like the Jetsons or something. It was like a quiet motorized sound. And it was, I remember thinking like, what, that was cool. It sounded like in my head, I felt like I was in the future. It's kind of like when the Jetsons and the little vehicles that go by, or in movies, all the different sounds of the cars and stuff. And it's interesting. It's very, I don't know, it messes with our senses, everything, like the way things are changing and stuff. Going back to drifting, I don't know if you're familiar with drifting watching this, but it's a very exhilarating sport, and just to watch it, I mean, to feel it and be actively doing it, it's amazing. But to see it even as well, it's very messes with all your senses, right? Like visually, it's crazy to see the cars sliding at speed. You see all the smoke that these high horsepower cars are creating, the sound of like these insane motors that they've built up now to the professional level, the tires screeching, literally sounding like monsters, I think sometimes, in like screaming dragons or something. It sounds insane when they're just spinning tires like that. And then the smell of the burnt rubber, it's a wild experience. And so like the way EV comes in now, it just changes it to, you don't hear the RPMs of a gasoline powered engine. It sounds much, which is one side like very pleasant to hear, I think, but also now with I would say the whine, maybe the squeal of an electric motor. I don't know how to describe that sound, but it's completely changing the way it's consumed, I guess, the surrounding environment. So that's very interesting. I don't know why I got into that, but in other words, just looking into new technologies. I mean, new technologies, energy, solar, electric, hydrogen, all these right now too, going back to the stock market conversation, many of these companies too are just like in a situation where they're gaining speed. And I've invested in some energy companies, and we'll see where that goes, but we're definitely making a shift here in the world to new energies, and that's kind of exciting. Have you guys heard of the space race is going on too? And I have read things and seen things about hydrogen 3. If you guys haven't heard of that, look it up. And it's like a nuclear energy source without the nuclear byproduct of a nuclear explosion. And they say it's all over the moon. There's fields and fields of helium-3 atoms that, if you think about it, they say that's why they're going to the moon. Like, oh yeah, we're going to go explore space and do these things. Like, man, we've been to the moon. And like everyone's trying to get back to the moon. Come on, I bet that there's like bases and camps already on the moon, and they're mining things and bringing them back. And I don't know. That's like one place we can't easily get to and have the media tell us, stories, and people with their cell phones like, look what I see here, because we're not there. But the one thing that I could firmly say that I agree with Trump, because I wasn't a Trump supporter, but he did one thing that I thought was kind of cool and seemed crazy, but was on point. And when he made the Space Force, I thought that was something foretelling of the direction we're heading in and the future we're heading into. Because why would you make a Space Force? He made a Space Force to protect us or to fight or to invade or to whatever. We need a force in the outer space where we could be attacked, or there's something out there like a valuable energy source that everyone's going to go try and get. and it's kind of like the oil fields in Iraq where there was wars fought over it to get the energy source. I feel like that's the next frontier, and that's where the Space Force is going to be. We're going to be like in Star Wars, like in the movies, people out in space trying to claim an area that's unclaimable so far. Like, who's the moon belong to? It belongs to some people. I don't know if you also saw that, where there was a real estate company, and I wasn't prepared to speak about this, or else I would have looked it up and got the info and stuff, but I saw that there's a real estate company that is legitimately, in a sense legitimately because it's collecting money, selling property on the moon, and people are buying it and then getting like deeds to certain spots on the moon. And that's crazy, right? Like, who owns the moon? Well, go find that real estate company and go find the deeds. I'm sure it should be public record too. And like, I saw that supposedly Michael Jackson, several A-list actors, the Bushes, and people have bought plots of land on the moon. And it's interesting too, because how forward thinking is that for like to leaving legacies behind, right? Many people talk about the legacy that you leave behind to your family. That's a crazy, awesome, forward-thinking legacy to be like, oh yeah, I bought some land on the moon, and it's not going to be until 2 generations later that my great-great-grandkids are going to get that property or something. And once it gets populated, I don't know, once the Space Force goes and invades the moon and conquers it and declares it, I don't know, the United States, then those real estate companies might actually have some leverage to say, yep, we're a U.S. registered company, we claimed it, and now, that's interesting. I don't know. Is that interesting to you, or does that sound ridiculous? Because I think it sounds a little far-fetched too, but given the day and age that we're living in now, I don't think it's that far-fetched. And I think after this, I'm going to look into it and go buy some moon land. Or, yeah, something like that. And back to the energy thing, going back to the Space Force, I mean, I think that was a legit program. Like, we shouldn't think that was all crazy and stuff. Like, I mean, I imagine like rocket suits and like astronauts with like rocket suits flying around in like spaceships, which sounds crazy, but it's not crazy because we literally have that now. Like, we have guys that strap rockets to their backs with wings and fly next to airplanes. We literally have that right now. We have guys that have been practicing, and women practicing in wingsuits for years now, flying. And I hope that before I go, one day I get to try that. I would love to do a wingsuit. And if that's the way I go, then that'd be cool too, because, man, flying, imagine what it feels like to fly. I've had dreams, many dreams growing up, and still to this day, where I fly. And dreams feel real, so I feel like I know what it feels like to fly and do that, and I wish I could really do it in real life. I saw an interview with a wingsuit athlete, and they were asking him, like, hey, how does it feel to fly? How does it feel to be in that position? And he said, well, if you've ever had a dream where you're flying, that's what it feels like. And then in my head, I was just like, ooh, I have had a dream where I'm flying, and I love how it feels, and I know what it feels like, and I want to do it. And dreams are interesting too, huh? I'm just going all over the place. Dreams are interesting because it's interesting that you have to have that conversation or that question of, have you had this dream of? Because I've met people that have never dreamt of flying before. And in my head, I'm like, oh man, that's too bad, because it's amazing to dream that you're flying. But then I've had dreams where other people may have mentioned to me that I've never had. Like, I've always dreamt in color, and I know some people that dream in black and white, and I've never dreamt in black and white. I've met people that have lucid dreams and can control their dreams and have exercises that they say they can initiate it. I've tried it and I haven't been able to do it. I've had lucid dreams where I've taken control a few times. By the time I realize I'm dreaming, I wake up. But I have had a few dreams where I know I'm dreaming and I just like build this weird reality. And it was only a few times, but that's awesome. So dreams are interesting too. I mean, lucid dreams, dreams where you're flying. I wish I could control my dreams. If you're a person that can, I'd love to talk to you, or leave a comment in the section below. That's a conversation I'd like to continue with. Yeah, it just totally threw me off right now. Dreams. Sometimes I look up stuff or read things up about the way our mind works and things like that, like hypnotism, for example. I don't know if you've ever been under hypnosis or are open to the idea of being under hypnosis, but I am open to the idea, but I'm scared to have somebody in my mind like that, because it can happen. I know it can happen because I've experienced something similar to it. And if you have been hypnotized or know of hypnosis, then you might know, and I think it ties much to the dream state. But yeah, I'm scared to have somebody like in my head poking around, maybe leave something in there that subconsciously affects me. To me, that's kind of scary. And I don't know how to do a little QC, like a quality control on a session like that with somebody. So, and a quick example of why I really believe in that and think it could be powerful as well. Like, I think it could be very helpful for our self, right? Our person within, confidence, doing things differently. I really think it could be a powerful tool, and that's why I'm open to it. But I remember one time, some years ago, with somebody I was dating at the time, that, you know, when you first date and you get all like lovey-dovey and everything's cool and you talk on the phone for like hours until someone falls asleep and you're like, oh, okay, good night, and you just don't want to get off the phone. It was like one of those situations, and I was falling asleep. Like I was going into the dream state, and I was starting to like have dreams, right? But I could still hear that person on the phone speaking. So I was consciously aware that I was in between both states of mind, right? I was dreaming and I was on a boat. Oh, time's up. Should I finish this real quick? Ooh, time's up. I gotta go. So I'm gonna leave it there. So I was about to share my experience with what I think is hypnosis. And this is to be continued because it's very interesting. And I'm going to continue it on episode 10. That's how we'll start the show. This was an interesting conversation. Please leave your comments below in the section below, and reach out to me. I want to get some more people on and have some interesting conversations of random stuff like we did today. So stay tuned. Episode 10, I'm going to continue with my hypnosis theory story of what happened to me. And with that said, thanks for watching. As always, I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.